I love our new theme song. That is a
Thank you.
That is a great intro.
I came up with it on the way in.
No, it's a great intro to a wonderful, positive website called Ask Brien, Brien. The show's positive, too. I'm the entertainment part, so sometimes I'll say quirky things, only I want to get you out of your nap. I want to wake you up. Maybe you're having lunch.
You're like Woody Woodpecker.
Maybe you're listening to our show on hometownstation.com. Ask Brien is brought to you by AskBrien.com. The two owners are Lindsay, the fabulous Lindsay McCoy, not here today, and the other one, Brien Johnson, sitting next to me, who doesn't eat lunch, Aaron, before he comes to the show. He's afraid that his little tummy is going to...
I've seen him eat lunch before.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't eat lunch.
No, what he does is he goes to Starbucks.
Yeah.
And he gets this meal deal.
Oh, you've seen him.
He raves about
Hey,
this
that's
meal
a secret.
Deal. He loves it.
Hey, coming up
And guess
here
what
in
I
a minute.
eat? PB&J.
Oh, I love that.
I'm not a J guy, but I'm a PB man.
Yeah, PB and...
Well, that's my initials.
You're PB&J guy? Really? I love PB. You get that at Starbucks?
Yep. Half a sandwich.
Yeah. So coming up here in a minute, this is a great time to tune in to AskBrien.com. We've got a great guest coming on. It's the Tech Cat, and this lady has a huge following in the country. Is she on the air now?
She is on.
Lori, how are you?
Hello, how are you guys doing?
Welcome to Southern California. Welcome to KHTS Radio. You can listen, tell your friends, text them out right now. They can listen on hometownstation.com, where we have the best radio app in the country in the App Store. Go to KHTS Radio 1220. So can I call you Lori, or how do you want me to refer to you, young lady?
As fabulous.
You are
haven't changed at
you
all.
are fabulous. You're one of the brightest and smartest ladies in this country when it comes to tech and cyber stuff. It's interesting. I was telling Brien Johnson, we refer to him on the show as Brien Johnson, because the show's called Ask Brien, Brien. So at lunch I was telling him, Lori, that the government today said the number one fear of the United States government and its people is cyber warfare, cyber technology, cyber everything. So the timing of you coming on is perfect today. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm trying to protect mankind.
Oh, girl.
With technology.
We need you. We need you. We need you. So we have thousands of people listening to your voice, a lot of small business owners. They listen at their desk. They listen at work on hometownstation.com. So let's talk about your expertise. How did you get it? How did you find it? When did you start? Tell us a little bit about your life.
Sure. And I'll keep this PG rated, right?
Yes.
Not from the past.
Yeah, exactly. I had started in film production, actually, in doing a lot of just assisting in the background in film production, and I ended up at some point working on a movie that had a lot of visual effects, and then I found myself getting really engaged on the technology side of that, and that was right around the desktop explosion with Macs, and I just was someone that was really intuitive about using the computers and figuring out how to do things, and I eventually learned how to edit video and eventually got hired by an internet company to produce websites when that was all happening, and then that company got bought by a big holding company, ad agency called Interpublic. And at Interpublic, I kept saying to them, things are changing. Everything's going online. We have to be looking at all this new stuff. And so eventually they made me the new stuff person. And then as the new stuff person, I launched a technology lab, and it was the first of its kind in the country. It was called the IPG Lab. And it was where businesses, brands, advertising agencies, and media companies would come and learn about all the new stuff and what the consumer behaviors were on all that new stuff, and then how to engage them. Because in the end, businesses want eyeballs, media platforms want eyeballs, and all these different brands and businesses want to understand how to speak to consumers on the platform that they're on. And so I became an expert in digital innovation and in speaking the language of all those different ecosystems.
Wow, what a great introduction. What is your website?
It's techcat.tv is my personal site for that type of being the tech cat, and then story-tech.com is my consultancy.
Got it. So I like that name, Tech Cat TV. I'm going to check it out after the show, Tech Cat TV. So, Lori, what keeps you up at night?
Oh, that's so, besides my cat, I would say that things are changing so fast, and understanding what the opportunities are and being smart about them is what keeps me up, and understanding how real a trend is and separating out the hype from what's real so that I can advise my clients correctly. And tracking all this. I mean, it's constant. You have to be reading all the time. I go to a lot of trade shows. I go to a lot of events so I can hear speakers. A lot of what I do for a living is curate at events and help set the strategy for the thought leadership that people will be experiencing. So I'm always someone that I've got to hear the latest thing. I've got to see the latest thing. So just keeping up with it is what keeps me up at night, literally.
Yeah, great answer. Brian wants to ask you a question, but I want to get back to what you said about trend after Brien Johnson asks you maybe the best question you've ever had asked. You ready, Brian?
Well, I was going to include trend.
I'm glad I'm sitting down. That's
yes,
right.
sit down. Here it comes. Here it comes, Lori. What's your question?
So the question is, how do you know the difference between whether or not it's hype or trend, and what defines a hype becoming a trend?
Great question.
Oh, yeah, that is a really great question. Well, hype is
I tried to stump you.
I think anything that is being hyped is a trend in itself, because if something starts to get talked about a lot, then that's something you have to pay attention to. But what we have to separate out from the hype and it landing to be a real business concern is, what is the demographic using it? How widespread is it? Is it something that we are still trying to drive traffic to, or is it organically exploding on its own? So you look at something like podcasts like this, right? Like for years podcasts were around, but it's only because now finally the technology is in everybody's hand. Connectivity is the way it is. We're living commuter busy lives. So that podcasts now as an on-demand audio format are really taking off. And so advertisers are being drawn to it because now the numbers are there. So it's really saying a couple years ago podcasts weren't that big because really these apps didn't exist on phones yet. So you have to kind of look at it like that.
So for what would obviously your background is kind of in the broad sense and more larger corporations, but what would you say to a small business owner? I mean, obviously they need to have the website.
Yeah.
Do they need to have the app? I mean, if you own the dry cleaning store, if you own the typical person out there, the ma and pa, do they need to have everything? I mean, they need to be on social media if they're got a local business, or is it only if their business has 5 locations?
Well, I think that everyone should have some sort of digital presence because local is the new black, right? And for people to find you even locally, you need to be in search, in SEO, available online, because how a consumer these days is finding you is on their mobile phone. And in order for someone to find you, in order for you to come up on search, you need to have some sort of digital presence. Now, do you have to have the most intense website in the world and a Snapchat filter and, YouTube videos and all of that? It really depends on who your audience is, what their size is, and you have to sort of do a market evaluation if you should be spending the money, on that. Because in the end, all content is marketing, all marketing is content, and so it's just a matter of how big does your storytelling need to go. But I do think everyone, including local businesses, has to have some sort of digital exposure so they can be found. And then it just depends on how big you want to get, because the more that you use digital channels to communicate your role in the world, the more you'll draw audience to it, right? So a local dry cleaner can become, say, a spokesperson for being green, and that could be their idea, their IP for getting the word out to their community. And then all of a sudden you start to see demand for that particular dry cleaner, and then they start opening up more stores because they have a special spin. They're green.
Yeah.
So it's up to you how big you want to grow your business, but I do think everyone has to have some sort of digital footprint.
The special spin, I want to talk about in a second. You're listening to a wonderful, smart lady. Her site, I'm looking at it right now, it's called TechCat. TechCat.tv, Lori Schwartz. You're listening on a radio station that Lori won, the #1 radio station in the state of California for its community service, KHTS Radio. The show is called Ask Brien, Brien. And Lori, he changed the name. So would this go to a special spin? Because everybody can spell Brien, Brian, but we went to Brien to be special, to stand out. Do you think that was a good idea?
Well, I think it's an interesting question, right? So if people can't find you because your brand is too unique, that could be a problem, right? But what you might want to do is go onto Google and buy some AdWords that own the other way you spell it, the regular way you spell it, so that if someone does spell it the regular Brien, they get pushed to the way you spell it. And so in the beginning, you're creating some traffic until people organically know what your brand is, and it's big enough to recognize it.
What a great idea. Lori Schwartz, the owner of TechCat, you can tell. You'll be back many times in our show, Ask Brien. I also do other shows.
Only if she decides to come on.
Well, she'll decide. I do other shows on KHTS, so I'm going to have you on my other shows.
I'd love to. I'd love it.
Well, your voice is very sincere and you're smart, so that's a nice combination.
Well, she's authentic.
So, yes, and I keep telling Brian
It's
we
not
need to
even
be
my
authentic. What did she say, Aaron?
She said it's not even my birthday.
Don't you think being authentic in business is like in the top 5 things you need to do?
Oh, there's no question. And by the way, a lot of that is because of tech right now, right? Because you can easily get caught in, falsehoods and not being transparent and incorrect information because consumers now are armed with, assets to track you down and find out if your claims are correct. So I'm in your store. You tell me this is the lowest price. I can check.
Yeah, no kidding.
So your messaging better be transparent and authentic right now. And also we have a generation coming up, not only the millennials, but the generation behind it, that requires culturally transparency. So not just a thing you add on, but they are organically transparent. And so if you want to connect with that younger generation, you've got to be coming to them on their level.
What is that generation called besides snowflakes? But no, are they calling themselves the A generation? Seriously, what are they being?
Well, every marketing research company is calling that next generation a different thing. I've heard Gen Z, but I've also heard the pluralists, and that's because they are the first generation for a non-white majority. So they're pluralists because they're multi-ethnic.
Wow! Wow!
So the plurals or the pluralists are that generation.
I think we're all honestly.
So who's going to win the battle of what to call these people?
Well, we're all multi-ethnic.
I don't know.
We're all multi-ethnic. Every one of us is multi-ethnic. You're listening to the show, fun show today, smart show today. It's called Ask Brien, Brien, on KHTS Radio. So let me ask you a question. I'm a business coach. That's what I do, and I'm not on radio. I coach several businesses every month. Been doing it for 20 years. I always get asked, what's the first thing I need to do in business? And I say, build a list. Can you talk about that, building your list, and how difficult it is or how easy it is, or how would you go about building a list?
So you're talking about a customer list and a loyalty base and sort of who you're going to be messaging to. Well, first of all, you can put some very simple things in place as you are communicating to, say you do a mail or you buy a mail list. You actually go out and you say, I want to reach women 25 to 40 who just had a kid because I'm selling baby supplies. So you go to a list seller and you buy a list and you do an email out to, put out an offer. When those responses come back in, you need to have some technology in place to capture, those emails, those people that are opting in. And that's how you start to build your audience, is by getting a good list and then cleaning it up and finding who's grabbing your offers. And then anytime you do anything, find ways to get people to leave their information. So for me, when I go to a trade show or a conference or anything like that, I'm still getting business cards. I know a lot of people say business cards aren't the thing anymore, but I like a business card because when I get one, I scan it into my MailChimp and I instantly add them to my list. And then if they want to opt out because they didn't want my newsletter, then they can opt out. But generally speaking, if someone hands me a business card, they usually want to receive my newsletters because they want to be engaged with me somehow.
Interesting. Interesting.
You know,
Let's stay with this. I want to give you a plug here for your website because it's a great looking site. TechCat.tv. Lori Schwartz is our special guest on AskBrien.com. BRIEN. So continue on building this list. Now, can I challenge you a little bit as we go along?
Yes.
I would say
please.
She likes challenges.
99% of everybody's listening to us, so they have no idea how to do this. I mean, we can
Right,
listen
right.
to your voice. Who do we find in the community to do all this stuff?
Right, to build out, to buy your list, and so there are small companies out there who do media buying and planning and marketing for small businesses. So you can go to your local small business, Better Business Bureau, or you can do a Google search for just finding small agencies that literally just do what they call CRM, which is, customer relationship or consumer relationship management. And CRM is sort of the key to managing your audience and your list. And there are literally people that do this, that just do this, that help you, communicate your message in newsletters. And they'll build the newsletter for you. And either you pay them every month to do it, or they do it once for you and you follow up with it. So a company I know of in Santa Monica, California, is called Hawk Media. And what Hawk Media considers themselves to be is sort of a la carte CMO, meaning Chief Marketing Officer. And so you can go to Hawk and you can say, I want to build a mailing list for this type of audience. And they'll charge you a small fee to do it because you're not going to a big agency. You're not going to put them on a year contract, but you just want this one service. And so they'll give you a price to do that one service. And I'm seeing more and more of these a la carte small business agencies arise to really help manage smaller businesses.
All right, we got to take a break. You're listening to Ask Brien on KHTS Radio. We'll be right back with our wonderful guest, Lori Schwartz of CatTech.tv. Be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Tech Cat.
Every week, I'm not kidding you. This week's no exception. We get great guests. If you tune in to us every week, you don't need to go to college. Maybe if you're even listening in high school. Look, I'm teasing a little bit, but I'm not. We get great guests. You can learn more from a guest like Lori Schwartz. Her website is techcat.tv.
Well, we're offering the MBA, the Masters in Brien Administration.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. Is that like Trump University? Huh? What's that like?
So let's not go there.
Paper.
So I've been in radio for 20 years. I'm starting my show over called The Business of Life. You'll probably be my first guest on it. You'll come in the studio here in a week. And so let's get back to something. When we opened up the show, Lori, I said to Brien, he's been traveling all over the world, Poland, Florida, New Orleans last week.
Poland?
Yeah, Warsaw. He went to Warsaw, Poland.
It was called Wolves Summitt.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Anyway,
Yep.
The concept was to make connections and contacts. So here's my question, and I want you and Brien to really participate in this.
Oh, thank you.
It's one thing to make a connection, but if you don't do it right, you're wasting your time. Am I correct on this?
I absolutely agree.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's many strategies for capturing a lead and then taking them down your funnel, right? And certainly people have figured out, like, really where that lead sits in their sort of purchase funnel. So I think you have to understand your consumer and what you're offering them and when you can trigger, that engagement. But, I've had this conversation with so many people, like you meet someone, you're selling them, they're excited, you get their card, you're like, oh my God, I just landed something, and then they blow you off, and so that happens all the time. And then there are other people who you casually engaged with who turn into your biggest clients in the world. So some of this is just the magical mystery of life, and then some of it is literally that people, have gotten it down to a science how to move a lead through their process. And that's like really understanding what your offer is and when someone really wants your offer. Like at what moment in their sort of demographic life, their psychographic life, is your offer going to grab them?
And that offer, you're listening to Lori Schwartz, her website. This is just another great guest on AskBrien.com, techcap.tv, techcap.tv. So Brien Johnson, what Lori just said, to me is significant. I'm taking copious notes, as you can see.
Well, you should be taking copious notes.
What's your take on all this?
My take on it is it's the follow-up, okay? And that's the difference. The people that don't do a good follow-up, that don't, and that doesn't mean to be harassing, stalking, or if you're on a spam list to keep on sending it, okay? What I'm talking about is a good faith follow-up, okay? You have to connect again. You can't just sit there and say, okay, they connected with me, I got their business card, I sent them an email, I'm done. No, it doesn't work that way. You need to actually go through the process of making some type of a connection, and you shouldn't be starting with business on day one either. Technically, you want to establish a relationship. Relationship building is very, very fruitful in the long run. The reality is you need to create a relationship with somebody. After you create a relationship with somebody and you're going back and forth and you're engaging that person, then you can move them down the funnel. But you have to have a relationship, and that can be done like Lori said, with the newsletter and with other items, with other methods. There's a whole bunch of methods out there. And by the way, everything in life is A/B testing. What does that mean? You have to test. By constantly testing, you're going to see which method works best for your funnel. And when you find something that works, you run with it. That's how you. That's.
Yeah, I love your relationship point too, because I have a lot of colleagues who have just kind of said to me over the years that when they hang out with a client, they don't go right in for the kill, right? But they ask about their kids.
Exactly.
And they talk about, human stuff, like human to human, like regular life stuff, so that they're making that connection, so they create a personal relationship. And then your client will actually say to you, I wanted to, to use you for this, but I couldn't, but I'm thinking about you for the next thing. And then you get to that transparency again, right? So you're absolutely right. I think in the end it is all about relationships, and that's the clients that I have that no matter what job they move to, find a way to use me.
Lori, thank you. Great.
Use your services, not use you, correct?
Yeah.
Exactly. Sometimes it's the same thing, though. Let's be honest.
I'm going to call you and try to hire you and try to. I'm going to read a book on negotiation tonight. So, her website's techcat.tv. You're listening on KHTS Radio, the Ask Brien Show. Next Thursday, we'll see you at 1 p.m. And Lori, we'll see you in the station probably the next 2 weeks. And all of us here in Southern California want to find out more about you. See you next week, 1 p.m. on Thursdays. Thanks, Lori.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Lori.